Make your favorite quilt block shine just by quilting echo lines. Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters from quiltingismytherapy.com, and welcome to the Negative Spaces Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. Throughout this video series, we're learning some of my favorite techniques for dealing with background areas of our quilts. In the last video, we learned how to use continuous curve designs to quickly quilt our blocks. And in this video, I'm talking about echoing, a simple yet impactful way to help your quilt blocks shine by helping to separate them from the rest of the filler designs. But echoing doesn't have to be boring. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to echo to really show off your blocks. I'll demonstrate how to quilt them on a sewing machine and a long arm, and give you ways to switch them up. So let's get echoing. Echoing is just quilting the same shape as a block, a set distance away from it. Almost working like a set of parentheses, saying, hey, come check me out. Not only can you use that to separate it from the background filler, but you can use the echoing to build up smaller blocks and really help them stand out. Of course, echo quilting isn't required. Your quilting will still look great without it, but it is an easy way to really show off and highlight those parts of your quilt that you just love. And the great thing about echoing is that we can make it as complex or as simple as we want. The first echo option, a single echo, is the quickest and easiest of the 3. Echoing around the blocks is done first before you put in the rest of the filler. And all I'm going to do is simply quilt a line that echoes the shape of that block. Now I can start that line anywhere that I want, but I love to start at the inner corner of something like this because I can position my foot right there and I know that it's perfect 1/4 inch away. Now, I like to use 1/4 inch spacing because I can run the foot of my machine along that seam. But if you want a little bit of a less dense option, you can space those lines out a little bit more. What's great about echoing is I'm using something that's already there to create my shape. It's kind of like mindless quilting. Now, if you're quilting along on a sewing machine, you can also turn your quilt to make it a little bit easier. For instance, as I'm working maybe along a diagonal, I might want to rotate my quilt so it's more vertical or horizontal, especially if I'm quilting bigger blocks or longer lines. Now, it's not required, but I do like to use a ruler when quilting those echo lines. It just helps give me a kind of guide to follow and helps my lines be a little bit more straight-ish. We're not aiming for perfection here, we're just trying to get those lines as close as we can. Because once we're done, all we're gonna see is that beautiful unquilted area around the block. So even if your lines aren't perfectly straight, even if they get a little bit further in some points and a little bit closer in others, I promise it's fine. And working around a block means that you're gonna be going in all different directions. So like I said, go ahead and reposition that quilt if necessary. And I'm just gonna keep going, working my way around the whole block. The idea of echoing might not seem important, but it really does help show off your block. And as you echo around points like this, you're gonna have to quilt a little bit further than you might think to come down the other side. I'm not looking at a 1/4 inch from here to here, instead I'm looking at a 1/4 inch from the sides. Then when we're done, we have our first beautiful echo. And of course, you could stop right here. But if you really like the look of echoing, you can go ahead and add a second echo line just to really help show off that block. Now to get to that next point, I could tie off and start a new line of quilting for that second echo. But I kind of cheat by just quilting a line directly across to where that second echo will start. That little cheat lets me go right to the echo without starting a new line of quilting. And if I'm using a thread color that blends, you wouldn't even notice it. Now, I'm sure half of you watching were like, no way, I am not doing that. And the other half of you are like, oh, I'm so doing that. But it's up to you to do what makes you feel comfortable. Now, as you add multiple echoes, you might find that your lines get off a little bit, especially if the first echo line is a little off and then you're kind of building off of that. So every once in a while, just kind of look at the block and make sure the echo lines are kind of staying where they need to be. And remember, we're not aiming for perfection here. We're just trying to get a little separation between the block and the rest of the filler. Then, once you've decided enough is enough, you can finish that echo and then go right into quilting the rest of your area. Sometimes I echo it once, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, but most of the time, that's usually the limit. Why that magic number? Well, usually it's about that point that I get bored of quilting that design and I'm ready to switch. Now when I'm echo quilting on a long arm, the main difference is that I'm always going to use a ruler to help me with those lines. Unlike a sewing machine, I can't easily change the orientation of my quilt, so I have to get comfortable quilting those echo lines in all different directions. Using a ruler helps me keep it a little bit more straight and makes it just a little bit easier. Even though traditionally echo lines are quilted around the whole block, you can actually be a little bit more selective about what you echo to create a different look. Instead of echoing my way all around the block, I can choose just to echo maybe the squares and avoid echoing the other parts. So I'm going to echo around that square, going from one side to the next. And once I run into the edge of that part of the block, I'm going to travel up about a 1/4 inch and then echo my way back. repeating those steps to quilt my echo lines. Then, once I'm done with that section, I'm going to travel along the edge of the point to get to my next section and start echoing there. There's a couple different reasons why I might do some selective echoing. One reason might be to avoid portions of the block that aren't pieced great. For instance, let's pretend I piece this block and my points aren't so pointy. By avoiding those points, I'm going to help draw attention away from them and focus on the parts of the block that turned out great. Another reason might be due to limited space. Maybe I don't have quite enough room to echo around some of the block because it's too close to another block or the edge of the quilt. It's going to still allow me to get that echoed effect without running it into the edge. But the most common reason that I like to do selective echoing is due to the throat space. Depending on the size of the block and the size of the machine, it might be tricky to quilt really long echo lines. So instead of doing that, I can break those echo lines up, quilt them in certain sections, still get that echoed effect, but it's a little bit easier to do. This is especially helpful if you're echoing on a long arm. Being able to break up those echo lines means you're not going to have to advance back and forth just to quilt one echo line. Selective echoing also makes it easy to quilt parts of the block while you're there. Since I'm touching the edge of the block, I have a way to transition into the block, quilt my design, and then continue on. And since we know that quilting the same design over and over again is a little boring to me, being able to break it up and quilt different portions just keeps it a little bit more engaging. Selective echoing can also change up the look of your block depending on which portions you echo. In this example, I just echoed around the squares. But if I wanted to, I could have echoed around the points, really building those up and giving it a different look. I think it's so refreshing to know that we don't have to commit to one whole echo line. We can break it up and do some selective echoing to get a totally different look. To emphasize certain portions of the block, you can add a little bit of an embellishment to your echoing to help build them up. I'm going to start by quilting that echo line that's echoing the sides of the block. And like I've already said, I'm using a ruler that helps me keep those straight-ish lines a little bit more straight. From this point, I'm going to pause my echoing and add some extra quilting by quilting a diagonal line that ends about a ½ inch or so outside of that outer corner of the block, then continuing on till I reach the echo line on the other side. Then I'm going to return back to my starting point by quilting a couple more diagonal lines that extend out beyond the first ones, returning to where I paused my echoing. Then I can resume echoing the sides of the block, repeating the same embellishment on each of the corners. Incorporating these little embellishments with the echoing will help make the quilting a little bit more efficient since you can add them while you're already there. You can play around with this embellishing technique to draw attention to your favorite parts of your blocks. You can also use this idea to help build up smaller blocks that might get lost in the rest of the quilting. Now in that example, I was echoing and embellishing at the same time, but you can actually go about that a little differently by building up the blocks first and then echoing around the outside of them. I'm going to start by quilting some diagonal dot-to-dot designs that extend out from the block. And I'm going to add a couple echo lines just for fun. Once I'm done, I'm going to use traveling to quilt along the edge of the block to get to the next section and add my next embellishment. Repeating that until the whole thing is quilted. And then once that's done, I'm going to use echoing to go around the outside of the quilting and the block. Like I've said, this is a great way to build up smaller blocks, draw attention to those areas, and help keep them from being overwhelmed by the rest of the quilting. Whether you opt for just a single echo line or go crazy and embellish it with lots of dot-to-dot angles, it's a great way to highlight those blocks of your quilts. And now it's your turn. If you're quilting along with me on the custom panel I designed for the video series, try echoing around some of those blocks with one of the 3 versions that we've learned. Just remember, you can make them complex, you can make it simple, or you can skip it altogether. And don't forget, I've put together those free quilting diagrams and tips that will help you be successful with the design. And if you need a little bit more help or a little bit more examples of how echoing is great for your quilts, you can check out the expanded resource PDF. It has even more pages of quilting diagrams, even more tips, and even more quilting samples. To find out more about either one of those, or to check out the custom products I made for the video series, just click the link in the description box below. Or visit quiltingismytherapy.com. And I'll be back soon with the next video in the series where we're going to learn how to use wavy line designs to add movement to bigger background areas. Until then, everybody, happy quilting.